Hello, good morning. How are you today? This is Zuri, and I'm here to bring you good news and good tidings. Always good news and always good tidings. I turned this light off because it's little causing a little reaction here, but I hope that you can see me just as plainly as if I had the light on. Well, you know I am the president of Bestt. Bestt is Bestt, and it stands for Black Endangered Species Threatened Today. And the reason why we're coming to you with Best is because we need your help now. Now, if you'd like to contact me, Best, you can go to my you can go to my email, and you can send me a notice there. That's mzuri31 at yahoo.com. Or if you'd like to call me directly, you can call me at 773-957-2714. And I'm coming to you because there's so many things that are going on in the black communities and so much killing and everything that's going on till it's just time for that to stop. It's time for it to stop amongst those that are blacks because we have black on black crimes, but then we're having the police brutality and so many other things that are going on. Also, even to question what our president said about our African neighbors and calling it the S hole. Well, we know what that means. So, anyway, I am the president. My name is Zuri. I am your humble servant, the president and founder. Well, in the year 2015, almost 800 blacks have been killed by the police, and that was just in 2015. So now you imagine this is now 2019, the first beginning of it. So you know that number has accumulated. But that was just in 2015. Almost 800 blacks had been killed by policemen in 1 year. Just that was in just 1 year. Now you know that is absolutely too much. Now go on and triple that on top of counting the years now up to 2019. Now we need protection for more. We need more than just the protection what the law is providing for the citizen. Our civil rights, and we know we have civil rights, but it seems like that's not being effective enough. Not enough. It's a good program, but we need even more. These are good groups, but they are not providing enough protections. I'm reminded each time that I have to wait. Now I have to wait, and you have to wait, and we all have to wait for the wild geese to cruise across the street of the highway, or we will be penalized, we will be fined, and maybe even go to jail. And don't you dare ever do anything destructive to an animal like a dog or a cat or something like that. You may even end up facing lifetime. But even with that, even though the animals that we have, the four-footed animals that are now beginning to get more recognition than human beings. I mean, you would be sentenced a long time for doing something to a four-footed animal, but when you do something to a human being, I mean, especially if they have the color of black or brown, you are not penalized as much. That is a problem. What is going on here? Something is mixed up. Something ain't right. Let's get these things right. Okay, now I'm glad to know that these animals are protected, but I am reminded every time I see all the wild geese crossing the highway, and I have to sit there and wait till the mother, the pops, the aunties, and well, whatever they are, the baby geese, as they slowly cruise across the street. Okay, I know that these geese have more protection than a little boy playing with the toy. Now, when I heard on the television that the police just came there. Actually, it was on the radio. I'm sorry. I heard on the radio that the police that just came there open fire when the little boy had the toy. That should not be. I mean, it didn't used to be that way. I remember growing up in the inner city, and even in the inner city, this was not happening like it's happening today. Okay, so a little boy out there playing with a toy, or a black person going to the store. I mean, you think about you going to the store just to get you some candy, just to get you some chips, or going to get something, and you think you're going to go back home and watch TV. But no, it doesn't work out that way. You are penalized. You are absolutely killed if you are faced by the wrong person that has a gun. So a black person going to the store just from one destination to another. We're asking the same protection that you give threatened extinct species, and this is what's going on. The black African American is becoming extinct. They say we are a species. So yeah, I'm going along with the word species. Okay, so they say we are a species and we are becoming extinct. We are very small in the population, and with all the killing and everything that's going on, we are becoming extinct. So we need protection. Otherwise, the seemingly to me, they're trying to wipe us off the face of the earth. So we're asking the same protection that you give threatened extinct species. We are human species that do not have the rights of a non-human species. I'm pleased to know that these animals are protected, but grieved to know that my black, colored, Negroes, African Americans, because we've been given so many different titles. Let me just try to remember: we're the Nigers, we're the Igbos, we are the Hebrews, we are the Israelites, we are the Africans Americans, we are the colored, we are the Negroes. I mean, you just the list never stop. I mean, well, I don't know what they'll call us next year or this year, for a matter of fact. And I think since we don't have an identity, maybe we should just decide to take an identity. Since they've lost our identity and that we don't know who we are, they say they don't know, then maybe we should just take an identity. And I don't think it always should be African American, because that's an identity that has been given to us. Sometimes, when I think back and think about my grandfather, I don't know about you, and my great grandfather. My great grandfather had 91 acres of land down there in Columbia, Mississippi. Patrick Fortenberry. He had 91 acres of land. And then my granddad, Ed Fortenberry, he had many acres of land. Now, where did they get all those acres of land from if they weren't already there? Now, my granddaddy, he was born in the 1800s, and his daddy had to be born close to the 1700s, because my mother was born in the early 1900s. So here we go. All this land was belonging to my great grandfather. Of course, he ended up losing it for he couldn't read, and they couldn't understand a lot of things. So quite naturally, they were taken. Their land was taken from them. But anyway, that lets me know that he was here. He may have been here because some Americans was already here, and they a lot of times we lose sight on that. I mean, a lot of times they say we just came over on the ship. Some of us was not on the ship. Some of our people was already here in America with land and property and living peacefully among one another. Okay, so now when we go back to these non-human species, you got the dogs on the television, they got them in the bed, they're kissing them and licking them all in the mouth. Well, I mean, to each his own. That's not what I want to do, because I've had many dogs and I know the habit of a dog. A dog doesn't know nothing but I'm a dog. And no matter how you try to treat a dog like it's a human being, it is still a dog. And if you let it go and let it wander off, you will see that it is just a dog. And I was raised with many, many dogs. I love them too, and I still do care a little bit about them, not as much as I used to, because, I've learned to care more about human beings. And being that I am a grandmother and a mother, I care more about my children than I do about an animal. I mean, I love the animal, but I care more about the human than I do the non-human. So I'm pleased to know that these animals are protected, but grieved to know that my black sons and daughters of color are treated less than these creatures. Where is justice? Where is justice? Our jails are filled with young men serving sentences 5, 10, 15, 20, and 30 years. And actually, I had a brother just recently to die in jail after serving 25 years, and he died. And the thing about it, he had not been fed for 5 days. And according to the autopsy I got from my sister-in-law, he could not move, but he was not fed for 5 days. Where is the justice? And he was in jail. Okay, so our jails are filled with young men like that, and you have many of that are dying in the jailhouse and not reported. And some are serving for rightfully because they committed the crime. But you got a whole bunch of them in there that did not commit the crime. Some have been committed, and they have some committed unlawful acts, but really the time doesn't fit the crime. Now we got people in there serving a lot of time for marijuana. Now marijuana is becoming legal. We got people in there serving a whole lot of time for crack, but you got people that's been caught with caseloads of cracks and don't get that kind of time. What is the justice in that? It is hurtful to know that blacks are still experiencing these kind of treatments. We have obeyed. We've obeyed. I know my mother did. She did everything that when we was living on the plantation, she did everything that he told her to do. I mean, she got up early in the morning. She worked from dawn, from the before the sun came up, from dawn until dusk dark. She worked in the cotton fields among the snakes and all the animals. She even worked in the White House up in there, the big house. You know what I'm talking about. She went out there. She milked the cow. She did the cooking. She cleaned. She washed. She did everything. She did everything. We have served, we have obeyed, we have served your children, we have helped build this country. Why? And not only help build it, but we are the originators. We are the Aborigines. The Aborigines. We are the Indians. We are the people that was here already. And now they're telling us that we don't belong. We are targeted because of our skin color. From A to Z. For abortions, we are targeted. For brutality, we are targeted. We are categorized. They see us in a car and just put us in a category. We're detested. We're disgraced. We're endangered. We're fabrication of lies. They lie about us. Genocide, self-imposed, homicide, unreasonably, illegally searched. That we're jailed to prevent procreation and killed just from being black. We're liquidated. We're only 13% of the population treated as men, women treated as nobodies, objurgated, obstructed, overlooked for employment, perishing from the earth, quashed, wrinkled, and treated racist, sabotaged, treated like thugs, underdog treatment, victimized by masses, and women treated as whores and xenophobic, yahooed and treated like zannies. Protection needs to be established for us. Protection needs to be established, just like protection is established for the non-human species. We need to have protection established for us. And I'm asking for protection to be established for us. The same kind of protection that is established for the non-human. Because when you go back to this book, and I'm reading this book, I bought this book and I love this book. It's a very old book. Look like a Bible, but it's not a Bible. It's called the Lincoln Library of Essential Information. Now, I read in this book, and though it was very short reading, but I read it in here, and I'm going to share some of it with you. Because the thing of it is, history is something that we want to know about. Telling his story, how they tell this. So now always they don't tell their story just right, but sometimes we do get a little something that seemingly be right about his story. We get mostly his story. We don't get very much about her story. But some information we get is right. And I'm going to try my best to go to this page that I thought I had it already situated, but it's seemingly like I'm going to have to do a little search, but I'll find it. Um, and it's talking about his story. That's what it's telling us. It's telling us about his story, and that's what we want to talk about. His story. And I like to get these old books because they haven't been changed as much as the new books. The new books, a lot of times they take the truth out of it and put whatever they want to put in it. But when you go and buy some of these old books, they haven't had chance enough to tamper with them, and sometimes you get his story. Well, now here, I'm going to turn this light on for a minute and see if I can see a little bit better. Okay, it's going to lighten me up a little bit here. It's not working quite right, so that's why I kind of like turned it off. But anyway, and it's got to make it some kind. I think my bulb or something. I don't know what's going on with it, but it's look like it's about to go out. Anyway, here we go. It talks about it at the time when we was called the Negroes. That's what we were called then. We was called the Negroes. And it said, Negroes, the same generally applies to the variety of the human race characterized by dark skin and woolly hair. Okay, look like this one just ain't gonna work for me because it just seemed like it's gonna just make all this old funny sound. So I'm gonna just turn it off. I'll get a better one the next time. Sorry for that inconvenience of the light going on and the light going off. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna read it with the dim light that I have. Possibly I'll turn another light on the next time. But anyway, it said the name generally applies to the variety of human race characterized by dark skin and woolly hair. Now, not all black people have dark skin, and not all Negroes have woolly hair. Okay, because woolly hair is actually just overly curly hair, and it's one of the best kind of hairs that you can have on your head. especially if you got that thick hand like James Brown used to have. Oh, I can take a beating and come on, keep on ticking. Okay, so anyway, applies to the variety of the human race characterized by dark skin and woolly hair in the United States. The term includes all persons with any trace of Negro blood. Then that means that almost everybody in the whole world is a Negro because mostly everybody have some Negro blood in them, especially if they have dark hair, and if they have dark eyes. If they don't have Negro blood in them, they got Indian blood in them. Believe you me, that is what it is. Okay, so these peoples are most common, or most numerous in Africa. See, now they didn't say all of the people are in Africa, but they said are most numerous in Africa. You have to listen to the words, are most numerous in Africa, but are also widely dispersed over the world. Okay, so now you got the most numerous ones in Africa, but also you have some dispersed all over the world. The wide distribution of Negroes throughout the world is due chiefly to the prevailing of the slave trade. Now listen here again. Now you got to listen to the words. The distributing of Negroes throughout the world is due chiefly, not totally, but chiefly, it says, to the prevalence of the slave trade in both ancient and modern times. Uh, the transportation of Negro slaves to America began with the early voyage of Spanish explorers. The greater the greater number of those slaves were brought from all parts of Africa. So now somebody said we was brought from Ghana, but now it's saying here in this book here, which was written in 1945. Let me go back and find to tell you when it was written, so you can know that it has some kind of truth to it, because they didn't get a chance to change it as if they would today. So now it was first the book was written. Let me let me find a little light here. I'm going to have to move this back a little bit here so I can see what I'm saying. Okay, the first edition was in 1924, and then the 15th edition was in 1945. And this book here that I'm reading, it was copyrighted in 1945, so that was before I was born, and more than likely before you were born. So there's still a lot of truth in this book. They haven't had a chance enough to take it off the market just yet. Okay, so they said chiefly, but not totally. See, they tell you some half truth, and you'll just say, all of us came from Africa. No, we didn't all come from Africa. Some of us was already right here in America. Okay, so chiefly to the prevailing of the slave trade in both ancient and modern times. Oh, the transportation of Negro slaves to America began with the early voyage of Spanish explorers. Uh, the greater the greater, not the total, the greater number of these slaves were brought from all parts of Africa. All parts of Africa they were brought from. All parts of Africa. Okay, now, okay, although some were trained artisan and agriculture from Spain. So you see, there was some blacks that was already in Spain. They were trained artisan and agriculturists. Okay, but we don't hear nothing about that when they talk about total population of the blacks or the colored, the Negroes, the Nigers, the Nubian people. They say that we all came over on this ship. But you have to listen to this word. The words are chiefly. And it says, okay, so some was already from Spain. Negroes accomplished the Spanish expedition into Western America. Say what? It said Negro accomplished, did you see that? Accompanied the Spanish expedition into Western America. And it is said that one Estevanius led the first party, and I may not pronounce his name just right, but it's very close to that name. Said led the first party. All right, led the first party. Hi. Okay, I got a tool over here. Maybe I can see a little bit better. All right, chiefly I can't see because of the dullness of the lights. That's all right. We're gonna get this out here. Okay, so okay, and train artisan and agricultures. Okay, Negroes accompanied the Spanish Estro expedition into Western America, and it is said that one Estevanius led the first party of Spaniards into this district, now included in the state of Arizona. In the state of Arizona. Okay? All right. So, and there is a substantial percentage of Negro blood in the population of Brazil. So, we find that there are Negroes in Brazil. Okay? In the population of the independent state of Ethiopia, there is a strong Negro element. Now, this was written in 1920 something and then 1945, but now people are beginning to try to say that the Ethiopians are not Negroids. Okay, not black, not colored, not like us. Okay, but this not true. Negro element, but the only African state ruled by Negroes is Liberia. In the New World is the Negro. In the New World, in the Negro Republic of Haiti. The most highly civilized and progressive group of Negroes are those of the United States, with few exceptions. They are the descendants of slaves held in the various states before the Civil War. Now, so they're saying now that in the United States, most of the United States peoples are slaves. But then they also said some was already here. They said some was with the Spaniards, some was in Brazil, and then they said chiefly most of them came from many countries over there in Africa. So now that leaves some. Well, you're not making an absolute statement. You're just making a partial statement. You're saying we are, and you're saying we are not, which is confusing whether we are. Now we got all these people running around here taking their blood tests, and they trying to find out what type of person you are themselves. You around here thinking that you trying to find out what type of person you are, and they want to know themselves. But you know what? Since we don't have nobody, and since we don't know who we are, why don't we just take and decide who we want to be? Let people stop deciding who they want to call us, and let's call us like it is. I believe that my family is come from the Indian tribe. I believe that we also mix with the African tribe and the Indian tribe. So that means I am straight up an American. I was here from the beginning. Okay, and man, so was my family. Okay, now in the population, okay, all right, okay. Now the first Negroes were brought to Virginia in 1619 by gradual steps. So they wasn't brought all at one time. They were brought by gradual steps into Virginia and started in 1619. In the course of the 17th centuries, Negro slavery became a recognized institution in the America colonies, and it hasn't quit today. They still have slavery going on today. Why you think that there are so many black people in jail? Because that ain't nothing but another slave plantation. There you lose all your rights. You can work for nothing. You can't vote, and you do all the other things that they want you to do. Another way of slavery. That's all it is. You got people in there serving time that haven't done nothing. They just serving because of the color of their skin. And then you got some in there that have done just a little something, and they're serving maximum time in prison. But anyway, so the plantation hasn't stopped. The slavery hasn't stopped. It just changed its form. Don't you see that they're constantly building more and more jails? They're building more and more jails because those are plantation. And boy, how much money they get per head. Oh my gosh. It no wonder some of these cities and states let you have a jail in their city because it's so profitable. So very profitable. Okay. The first Negro was brought to Virginia in 1619 by gradual steps in the course of the 17th century. Negro slaves became a recognized institution in the America colonies. In 1710, and they said we don't deserve, said the black people don't deserve reprobation. What do you mean we don't deserve it? You recognize that you had brought the people in here as slaves and institutionalized it. And what they're doing today, institutionalizing it. Oh boy. In 1710, there were in the United States about 750,000 Negroes, of whom 60,000 were free. So now the 60,000 were free. Where did they come from? Okay? 60,000 were free. Now they had children, but what did they do? They categorized them as if they were never free Negroes, as they was calling them back then. But 60,000, that creates a large population. Can you understand what I'm saying? Okay, so were free. In 1860, about 4,400,000, of whom about 400,000 were free. 400,000 were free, which means that they had children and their children had children, their children. So now why are all the black Nubian people categorized, colored? Why are they all categorized as slaves? Okay, in 1940, 12,865,518, an increase of 8.2% from 1930 from 1930. So it was more than doubling, 8.2% from 1930. This was a problem. Too many of them are coming here. What are we going to do? How are we going to keep it? We got to get rid of some of these people. How are we going to do it? How are we going to do it? Oh, well, we're going to put some in jail. We're going to just kill, hang, burn, stab, mutilize, do whatever we want to them. And we're going to get rid of some of these people. And it's been the process ongoing. Ongoing. It's still the process ongoing. You better know it. Uh, the notable progress of the American Negroes since the Civil War may be judged by the development of means and methods of education among them and by their economic advance. So you see, the Negroes, even though they were not being treated fairly, the blacks, the colored, the Nubian people were not being treated fairly. They were becoming very, very economical, free from the system of not having, the need mores. They were coming free from the have-nots. Oh yes, they were the haves. And look, that presented another problem. When they seen how they began to prosper and everything they were touching was prospering, that became another problem. Yes, it did. Okay. Okay, so before the war, some public and private schools for Negroes had been established. In 1861, the foundation of the Great Hampton Institute, which my grandmother's last name was Hampton, okay, Great Hampton Institute was laid by the America's Missionary Association. Emancipation, however, precipitated, I'm sorry, I can't have see that, precipitated a crisis which was rendered yet more serious by the constitutional amendment. So it was a serious situation. They didn't like that. They didn't like the idea of what the emancipation did. Even though it didn't do as much as it should have done, it did something. It made a change. Okay. And, okay, which gave citizenship and constitutional, gave citizenship and suffrage to the Negro. Soon after the close of the war, various individuals, churches, and other agencies directed and financed by whites attacked the problem. The greatest service of the schools thus established was to start the Negro upon the way to self-help by preparing Negroes, teachers, and other leaders. Now, which I know we already had. They may have to had to sneak around and do it, but they did have them already. Okay, as the present at the present time, at the present time, with the aids of various educational foundations for the support of public and private schools, Negroes and whites are cooperating in an increasing number of enterprises to meet the diverse needs of the colored people. So the colored people, now they're not called Negroes no more. They changed it now from the Negroes to the colored people. Because you know why they were the colored people? Because they were Indians, they were Africans, they were all mingled up type of people. And they then now they say the colored people. We can't call them Negroes now, the colored people. So you know they start calling the colored people. The colored people. But then because we start to bond together as colored people, we better separate these people and call them by a different name and not all call them the same color because then they're going to bond together as one because look, we the only one that don't have no color. Okay, all right. The greatest leader, they say, who had yet arisen among the Negroes themselves was Booker T. Washington. In business and in industry, progress has been equally substantiated. Negroes engaged in businesses have increased from about 4,000 at the close of, wait a minute, hold on, 4,000 at the close of the Civil War to upward of 70,000, doing an annual business of $1.5 billion. This was back in 1920 something. Do you hear what I'm saying? And they will have you believe that you are nothing but a bump on the log. They will have you to believe that you didn't contribute anything to this society. They will have you believe that you have always been poor and never had nothing. Po, po, po. But you know, my mother told me, said my daddy was rich. He didn't even have to go to the store to get anything. I think it may have been two items that he didn't grow on his farm. He had all kind of fruit trees. My mama said he had the chicken pin tree. I ain't even heard of that before. He built his own houses. He didn't even let his daughters. He had four daughters. He never let them work for anyone, but they worked side by side on their farm. And so that means right there, he was a rich man. He was able to supply his own needs, didn't need to go outside. But they finally got him, and they finally took his land away from him. He couldn't read. He could only sign an X because he wasn't from this country. You know he wasn't. He wasn't from the country of the new people. He knew how to speak his language, but he didn't know how to speak their language that they brought over. He couldn't read their language. He knew how to talk to his own language, speak his own language. So that lets you know there, right there, something's going on. Something is going on. I smell a rat somewhere, don't you? All right. Anyway, let's go on and continually read this. Yes. Ah, boy, oh boy, oh boy. Next time I do this program, I'm going to have better lighting because you know it means everything to have better lighting. So they had business of $1.5 billion and some 50 Negro banks. Did you hear what I'm saying? Some 50 Negro banks have aggregate resources exceeding $20 million. That was back then. What happened to the banks? What happened to the money? I smell a thief somewhere. Somebody came in and took the banks. Somebody came in and took the money. Oh, yeah, because these people were doing wonderful in their business. They were exceeding more than they ever expected them to exceed. Oh, yes. The largest predominant the largest predominant, wait a minute, hold on. Okay, hold on. I skipped something. Some 50 doing a Negro banks have aggregated resources exceeding $20 million. Property owned by Negroes is estimated at more than $2 billion. What happened to the property? Who got the property? What happened to the $2 billion? In just from 1945, this book was revised in 1945, so they were still doing it. So what happened in those few little years? I know by the 1960s, it was a decline. In the 1950s, 1960s, is that what made us have that breakdown? Is that what caused the money when we had that problem with the money? Is that what it was? They were going about getting the money from the black people? Were they taking their property? Did they take their $20 billion? Did they take their 50 banks? Is that what some people have built up on? The welfare of another person and then turn around and call them poor? Think about it. This book was written in 1945. That's only about 70 years ago, at the most 80 years. These people have gone from $20 billion to now nothing, from 50 banks to maybe a few banks now. Come on. What happened during this period? Let's find out what happened between 1945 up until now, which is about 80 years ago. That's not a very long time. That is not a very long time. Okay, somebody, I'm appointing you to do that research and bring it on here and share it with us. Hmm. Okay. The largest predominantly Negro communities in the United States includes the Negro section of Chicago and Harlem in New York City. So the largest part of the Negroes in the North was in Chicago and in New York City. We better maybe study that one. Negroes have entered all the professions. Did you say all? No, we can just sing and dance. Singing and dancing is a beautiful thing, and I don't put it down because I am a singer and I love to dance. But Negroes have entered all the profession, more than 150, did you say 150? 150 hospitals and training school for nurses are operated for colored people, mostly controlled and directed by Negroes. 150 hospitals? What happened to the hospitals? 150 hospitals? Where are they? Are they being called by another name? Were the name changed? Did someone else build up on top of these hospitals? 150 hospitals back in 1945? In 80 years, 150 hospitals have disappeared? Hmm. And training schools for nurses are operated for colored people, mostly controlled and directed by Negroes. Some 400 periodicals. 400 periodicals? What happened to the periodicals 80 years ago? What happened to the periodicals? You mean to tell me they done came over and learned the language and now they are creating their own periodicals? Or maybe they were creating periodicals in their own name. But what happened to the periodicals? Where are they? Who took them? Why don't we hear anything about them? Where are they at? Are published by and for the colored race in the United States. During World War II, that's the war my daddy was in, discrimination in employment and industrial training on, on account of colored was forbidden by the order of President Roosevelt. So now it's forbidden, they say, but it's still going today, President. It says the discrimination in employment and industrial training on account of color was forbidden by order of President Roosevelt. Then why is it still going on today? I live in a town that is so color coded. When you go into all the so-called high places, places where the dignitaries are, guess what color they are? They're not my color. You might find one or two. I'm talking about in 2019. President Roosevelt, they are still not succumbing to what you asked them to do. They're not doing it, President Roosevelt. It's still discrimination going on right now, President Roosevelt. And even though you forbidden it, it's not. If they're not listening to you, okay. The American Negro has made distinct contribution. Did you say we made contributions? Then how come it's not talked about? Why don't they talk about it in school instead of just showing us pictures of slaves with a big old iron around his neck? Let me say this again. The American Negroes has made distinct contributions to modern art. Where are they at? Where's the modern art? Where? Huh. Most notable in music, most of that's being stolen too. The spiritual in uh, in a sculpture, in sacred music, and the so-called ragtag, blues and jazz, in the secular music. Now they give that to us. They will give us a little music. Well, they can't help it because we're so talented. But boy, it is being taken right before your eyes. Anything, let me tell you, anything you see people of color doing, you're going to see it being done all over the world, even the dropping of the pants. If you notice, if you look on any other cultures, you're going to see them trying to drop their pants just because our people start dropping their pants. I mean, I don't agree with the dropping of the pants. I think it's a style that I would never have taken up when I was young because we was trying to be cute. But anyway, the dropping of the pants is going on all around the world. It's over in Africa. I know because I have friends in Africa. And it's over there. And it's going around the world because why? People of color have made it popular. And anything people of color, and I'm just going to say the Nubian people, basically what we'll call the black people, the Aborigines. Why don't you call yourself what you are? The Aborigines and the Indians. That's who we are, yes. And we may be mixed with African. But I noticed my blood type is much different than the African blood type. Matter of fact, the friend I talked to had never heard of my blood type in his life. Anyway, the American Negroes has made distinct contributions to modern art, most notable in music, the spiritual in sacred music, and the so-called ragtag, blues, and jazz in secular music. Trace their origin to the colored race. Trace their origin, that means originally came from. Now you're back to the color. Now just in this book right here, we have been classified as two different kinds of people, Negroes and color. Negroes and color. Excuse me. Why was it necessary to change from Negro to color? Uh-huh. You know why? Because colored people included Indians and all people of color. Then they tried to point out some of the Negroes, which is, as they described, woolly hair. Woolly hair? Well, then there's a lot of really light skinned Negroes then, because I've seen some woolly hair on some real light faces. Did that make them a Negro too? Oh, okay. All right, so we go back to the book. And jazz, it's secular music, trace their origin to the colored race. In poetry also, as well as in sculpture, drama, paintings, and general literature. What? Negroes, artists of distinction have arisen. Have you noticed that? It says literature. Oh no, they're illiterate. No, literature, drama, poetry. What happened to it? From 1945 to now, where is it? What did it disappear to? Why don't we hear anything about them? Everything has been changed. The color has been changed. The faces have been changed. The faces have been changed. What happened? This is what we need to know. And this is the research that we must go on to find out what happened. This book was revised in 1945, which was less than 80 years ago. And now we can't find any of these things, at least not being taught in the schools. Why? This book here is Abraham Library. It's Lincoln's Library of Essential Information. Why isn't it being taught essentially in the schools? Why isn't it being shared with the young people? Why are they still taught to assimilate instead of staying with their people and learning more about their people? Okay, this is your servant and founder of Bestt, bringing you nothing but the truth from these books that are written. I read you word for word from the Essential Lincoln Library of Essential Information. Lincoln Library of Essential Information. It's a very old book. It looks like a Bible. It's so old. But this is where I'm getting this information. Is volume 1, language, literature, history, geographic, science. You might want to look it up. Maybe you can find it on the internet. But thank you for tuning in to BESTT, and I'll be bringing you more information. I'm Zuri. Peace out.